Hi, Jan. Thank you so much for joining me today.
It's an absolute pleasure, Dean. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to chatting to you today. So we're going to kick straight off, Jan, with the first question, which always is, Jan, what's important to you?
Oh, there's many things, and it's always a great question. And I'd heard it before, and it makes me think all the time because
Mm.
we take so many things for granted. But I think one thing what's important to me is people. I love working with people, and I'm in the people industry through training and development. And one part of that that's important to me is values as well. I'm in leadership training, but adding value to people, and that comes in
Mm.
many forms. And I'm also a values-based leadership specialist, so we work a lot with values. And when we look around the world at the moment, there is a lot of that lacking, I believe. But yeah,
Yeah.
there is many things, and family, of course, as well. That speaks for itself. But it is interesting how the last 3 years have given me a different view on a lot of things. And I think I'm not the only one. I think many
Mm.
people will agree with us
Yeah,
about those kind of things.
absolutely. So the first thing I'd like to go a little bit further into when you say the two things, it says people, but then you really said about values. It kind of comes into a lot of the things you do in relation to do professionally. And one in a sense, there's almost two things I picked up, a sense of, is it when you look at it personal value, but then it's also adding value. So do you,
Yeah.
in a sense of like, did you have to sort of figure out your own values first before you could then add value to other people?
Oh, that's a good question. And the answer is yes.
Yeah.
I think it's with everything. I mean, I also behavior analysis consultant, and I sometimes, I mean, it was the same there because you need to get to know yourself first. I mean,
Mm.
the vast majority, I just ask simple questions to people. I say, what is your communication style? And they look at you as if you got horns on your head, and what is your learning style? I said, if for us, if we want to add value to people, then we first and foremost we need to value ourselves, and that's where the question comes, and that's why it's very important, and most people don't think about it. So what do you value really? We're not talking about fancy values that hang on in the hall of a wonderful office that most people don't even know, and only a few in the whole company chose, hopefully, that everybody will follow them. No, these are personal human values, like listening, like respect, forgiveness, restraint, hope, and there is so many of them. I've just written a few more as well, but we've got a range of values, and for some people, I mean, of course, family,
Yeah.
and for some people, the laptop comes in the top five, and that's okay. I mean,
Yeah.
if that's your workstation and it earns you your bread and butter, of course, that is of great value to you. But I don't think it should come above value. And there's people who put religion at the very top
Yeah.
and family, but it is irrelevant what they are to you. But for me, I certainly needed to really sit down and think, what do I value? Not only what values do I have, but also what do I value? And these again are two different questions,
Yeah.
and they've got an overlap, of course. But I mean, there is also a quote which really speaks into that by John Maxwell, and he says, "People of value people." And
Mm.
I think so. But then, of course, it comes back. You need to value yourself first. The same as
Yeah.
people expect respect from other people, and I says, well, do you respect them first and foremost? They need to give it first. Whoa, whoa, whoa.
Yeah.
And I says, so that's a conversation. And then the next thing is, do you respect yourself? Because
Mm.
you cannot give what you haven't got. If you think that you're going to give, you expect respect from others. First of all, if you don't give it, then what happened to be the change you want to see in the world. I mean, people know how to quote that, and I said, but there is more to that. It says you need to respect yourself. It's the same with love. You need to love. Self-love is important, and most people haven't got it because of what's happening around them and what's happening to them, and they forget what's happening inside of them. And so it's a wonderful question, and a resounding yes. I needed to sit down. I had a good idea of what my values were,
Yeah.
and I got that from some of the people, like my grandparents and my parents, of course. But there is a lot more to it, of course.
Absolutely. Thank you for going into that, because I can just also just watching you and hearing you can just hear it coming off the screen, like it's amazing. But what I love there, in a sense of, and you're right, there are two different questions: what are your values and what do you value? And I think, I don't know about, you might know this more in your experience, but sometimes I think the second part, like what do you value, is kind of, it's kind of a dismissed a little bit, because it kind of plays into the sort of, oh, well, don't be too materialistic and don't be this. But as you say, though, it's like, the example you gave of someone's laptop, for example, is like, not because it's like it's something that's the best, or oh, it's whatever, the the numbers or whatever. It's like, no, if I don't have this, I can't work, means I can't live, I can't share whatever I want to share and get my message out there. So I really do think what you said there about asking people what they value. And so if you were like working with someone, I don't know, because I know you work with companies and people, but when you ask that question, how do you find that people answer it? Are they a little standoffish? Is it a bit more of a, I'd like to know what your experience of asking that question is.
I mean, there is very few who give him a straight answer. That's for sure.
Yeah.
But the reason is, of course, because they've never asked this before.
Yes.
And so if you've not been asked this before, most people don't think about it. I mean, they have a fair idea, and eventually they sluggishly come out with, oh, family, and some say religion, and my car, and they start thinking about my quality time to this. But I mean, you need to start pulling it out. But I mean, that's not so difficult really, because you can ask, what, whether it's your job. But I mean, money never comes up, which is quite interesting, because I think a lot of people are even scared to do that. And I touched on the subject as well, because I said, money is only a tool. And I said, don't get me wrong, I want to become a billionaire, because I know we can do a lot more good with money than without it. But we can at least start without it. But people have a misunderstanding, the love of money, and they see all these crooked people, and all these crooked people have money. I say, no, there's a lot of crooked people who have none, and that's why they are crooked. But it's quite often not understanding the value that something or some person can bring to you. So that's what's needed. You need to understand, and therefore I think you really, most people should actually sit down and take some quiet time just by themselves, and really sit down and think about it. And then that might not be a one-time thing. That might be, because it's not set in stone, of course. As things start to progress in here, then you start attracting more ideas. You are what you think about. So if you put that seed in there, it might need to germinate for a while, and people come up with a list, and there's no say, oh, you can only have 5. No, whatever you value, and you can put it in the list. There is John DeMartini. He's written a book about values, and in that he's got 13 questions that you can answer, and then you need to score, and then at the end you can see which ones are in the top 5. So you can do these kind of tests.
Yes.
But and that is especially to help you along. But it should not be the be all and end all, because there is so many things around it. I mean, some people just value the fact that they're alive and they're healthy, and so their health and fresh air. It is not the intricate things like a big house and a big car. No, that's materialistic. And again, as you said as well, there's nothing wrong with having some materialistic values, because a roof over your head is kind of important. We see it here as well. It's actually, the last few days have been really cold. And we were talking about it, the houses here are not really made for that cold weather, and it doesn't happen a lot here. I mean, I speak to my friend, and he says it was 7 degrees in Scotland 2 weeks ago, and I thought, okay, no, we went from 27 to 17, and people start feeling the cold.
Yeah.
So again, a lot of things are relative, and
Yes.
and the same happens in value. So when a lot of people here they live in the shanty towns, in the shacks, so they've got a tin roof over their head, and in the winter it's cold, and in the summer it's roasting. But they value the simple things in life. So there is a lot of things that you need to consider, and some of the smallest things will have the biggest value. And so to people to sit down and says, get an old-fashioned way, get a pen and paper, and just go and sit somewhere, prepare yourself for it, have a thought, and then once that thought really starts working, go and sit down and see what works for yourself. Because as values-based leadership specialists, we work a lot with companies, individuals, families, but that's a whole different process. That gets people to connect at a heart level, and that's a whole different story altogether. And that's something that completely changed my life.
Okay, well, you've just segued lovely then into the next, where I'm going to go next, because we'll talk about the leadership piece in a second, because I think that's really interesting in that. But talk to me what you just said there, in a sense of going into that heart space, and in a sense of that, what do you mean by that?
Significance. The one word is significant, and I think I'm actually writing the value about that at the moment, and all these values we've got are 2 pages, and for me, again, there's another quote by John Maxwell. He's the #1 leadership expert in the world and also a friend and mentor. But he said, when I first joined his team in 2012, I heard him saying it a few times before that as well. Once you have tasted significance, success will never be enough. And I had no clue what the difference was. You know, and no idea.
Yeah.
I knew there had to be a difference, and significance was
Yeah.
better. But I didn't know what the thin line was. And then in 2013, we went to, and again, it's next month, it's 10 years ago, he asked for volunteers to go and help start transformation of an entire country. Now, I mean, I've been studying personal development and martial arts since I was 17-year-old, which is a few years. And so when I used to travel, I used to be in the oil industry. When I used to travel, half my case was books, you know, the good old fashioned thing, books. And these were personal development, leadership, and I did coaching programs, being stuck in hotels 10 months of the year. But what happened was we went there and we had no idea. A guy called Paul Martinelli, he said, we were going to go somewhere to do some things with some people at some time. And yet 150 of us went with him. You know,
Wow.
that's a good salesman, by the way, you know.
Yeah.
But the thing was, we got there, and that's the first time I saw values-based leadership. And people say, oh, values, oh, and then leadership, that's for them. And I say, well, take that back. We all need a foundation of values, and we are all leaders, because leadership begins with self-leadership, and that begins with and ends with personal development, daily, intentionally. There's so many speeches that can be made of that. But what happened was we went to Guatemala, and it's a country with 14 million people, average age 20. So you can imagine all the troubles they had, and they were there. And we're very small people as well, and I'm 6'4". So there was the experience there, and I says, you know, that's where I found significance, because I saw it in the people, I felt it, I experienced it, so much so that on the way home, I'd been in the oil industry for 30 years, and on the way home, I quit my job. And that was a long time coming, because I think we all have a voice, and that's why you're doing what you're doing as well. There is something that speaks to you that you need to do to add value to people. And by doing this, you add value to me already. You have done so already, even just connecting with me. But when there is that voice in there, we can keep it aside and we can make excuses for our lives, like most do. Oh, I've got the school fees, and I've got this to pay, and I've got that to do, and then they go and die with their value inside of them. We've all got a destiny. I mean, they say thoughts become actions, actions become habits, and habits become your destiny. It's a bit longer than that, but I mean, that's the basic one we use in our value system as well. But we train 19,000 people to become facilitators in this program called Values-Based Leadership. And on the way home, not only did I quit, I say, I want to be part of this, and I need to be part of it. And that was the thing, you know, to see the feeling I got, and it was maybe in a way a bit selfish, but what I got in Guatemala in that week there, I wanted other people to feel. And nowadays, you know, younger people, the older people worked for a pay rise and a promotion and those kind of things, and did all the hours God gave them, because make hay while the sun shines. But the younger generation is not so much anymore. And I think what they are more looking for is that significance, to make a difference in somebody else's life and know that your life mattered. And that describes value, you know. So, and it doesn't have to be big things. You can start in your neighborhood. And I think in the last few years that's been shown that people who you never heard of all of a sudden stood up in the community, and they started going around the old people if they were okay, and doing all kinds of things. And those people are heroes to me. Because and I don't take this lightly. It's ordinary people doing extraordinary things. You know, and to me, that, I mean, I get goosebumps just thinking about all the stories I heard, and that keeps me going. And the fact that when they add value, when you can bring value, see, values are discussion points. In the process we use. I mean, there's actually a book behind me that says "Change Your World," which was actually written about this whole system by John. But when you have when you can focus on other people, first of all, your own problems don't seem so bad, but also the satisfaction when whether you're a coach or a speaker, or you train, or you do something to enhance other people's lives, that gives you that significance. And it's that warm feeling inside for doing something that is better than just doing stuff for you, because success is for yourself and significance is for others. Wow, and that was really the powerful thing. And the reason I wanted to be part of it, because what I saw there and experienced, but we were in Ireland in 2018, as I told you, and to help start Lift Ireland, with a lady called Joanne Hessian, who also became an expert, a specialist in this. And Lift stands for Leading Ireland's Future Together. And it's phenomenal results over the last 5 years. But I'd been to Paraguay as well, and online we've worked with Transformation of Lebanon. We just trained some more people last week, actually.
Wow.
And my wife is also a specialist in this. So it is a process, and I say to people, and I don't take this lightly, but it says, when you actively get involved in this will change your life.
Yeah.
And to see that and to know that it's not an ego thing. It's a fact that knowing that we make a difference in other people's lives, and hoping that significance is something that spreads, because if that significance spreads, that means they are going to pay it forward, and they're going to do better things for other people. And when that ripple effect starts, countries are changing, and hearts are changing, because instead of just connecting at the mind level about technical stuff and all the other kind of stuff and AI now, and we still need that heart-centered feeling, that leadership we all have within us, that we don't need to lead others, but we need to connect with others and make a difference in other people's lives. And that's also leadership.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. I mean, so much in that. I'm getting goosebumps as well, just listening to you. It's amazing. But it's like us going back in the sense of that first part of the story where we said, well, we're going somewhere to do something with some people at some time. You just sort of like the little sort of information you had, first, I suppose is the thing of how much of it did you have to kind of like, because it's kind of it was a lot of it, what you said there to me is almost like, were you taking risks in sense of what you were doing, going to do something that you weren't necessarily 100% sure or didn't know what the outcome would be? So was that something you were like, oh no, I just want to get involved in this? Or was it something you kind of had to get around your head of going, well, I don't actually know what I'm going into here?
Good question, yeah. And that is quite often the problem with most people.
Yes.
They overthink things.
Yes.
They think and they think and they think and they do nothing. Done is better than perfect. That's a great quote for that. And that was told to me a long time ago. But what happened was I'd been developing myself, and I was training people in the oil industry in the inspection side, and not because I had to, because I wanted to add value, because somebody did it to me one time. So I was always somebody who wanted to give value. It happened it actually started when I was a little kid. I was bullied because I was as wide as I was tall, and then at age 12 I grew to 6'4", so the bullying stopped. But it kept going in here. So then I just wanted to belong and be with groups. So that's really, in a strange way, it probably started my need and my desire to serve other people.
Yes.
But when John Maxwell said it, I still remember it. It was February 2013, and he said, we are going to Guatemala, and we're going to help start transformation of that country. And who's interested in going? And I thought, I'm never going to be asked that again. I didn't know what we were going to do. I knew the only places I knew we were going to Guatemala, and I was in Scotland at the time. So I said, okay, I want to go. And that was a week in June 2013. But I never had any doubts about it. It was, it was a case of jumping into something that I feel might make a difference in my life. I just never had any idea how much. But quite a lot of the time we hold back and say, oh, but I need to do this. And no, sometimes we just need to jump. And it might not always be the desired result we have, but the biggest regret is not making mistakes. The biggest regret is not doing the things you think you should have done. And on your deathbed, it's never, oh, I wish I'd spend more time in the office. Yeah. It's all the other kind of things come to you. And so it's, yes, I jumped in. No, I never had any regrets. And then when I quit my job, I still needed to work a year. I was a project manager at that time, so I still needed to work another year. But when I walked away from there, I had no solid plan, which maybe was not the best thing. But for me, it was, if not now, then when? And if not me, then who? And if not this, then what? So if I'd said, and people were calling me, because I was one of the few experts in what I did. So people were calling me, oh, no, you're crazy. Well, nobody said I was ever sane. I'll agree with that. But I said, I could try to explain this for you, because it says when something goes from your head to your heart, and you start feeling it, and our voice gets bigger. It says, if you don't understand that, no explanation will suffice, and if you do understand it, no explanation is necessary. I was like that, and then they look. What did you just say there? I said, I forget it. Yeah. But it is something that when you know. And you can argue with it, and we do that in ourselves, and people say, I never argue with myself. So, that little voice that just told you that did that. But at some point, it is we're not getting any younger. We're not guaranteed of tomorrow. So I think we always need to make sure that we do something to improve our lives today, and that's up to the person looking in the mirror.
Yeah, but I think as well what ties into what you were just saying there as well, because you said the amount of work you've been doing on yourself at that point. A lot of the times when I speak to people, we're sometimes, even if we don't realize it, we're working on ourselves or developing ourselves or doing things for an opportunity that we don't know is going to present itself.
Yeah.
And it's like, but you've done all the work, and it's just, as you say at that point, it's like, well, it's actually, whatever analogy, is jumping off the cliff, it's walking through the door. It's like you've done all this stuff. It's just a case of taking that extra one step, because you forget everything you've done before was probably a lot harder than taking that last step, even though that last step feels much bigger. It's actually maybe not as big as maybe it would be. But the other point, I think, from what you shared there about your experience, that first experience of when you went to Guatemala, the two things that stood out to me in sense of, one, you said about it's the importance of significance, being about other people. And that's the thing as well. And, the sort of the outcome, as you say, the success would be for yourself, the significance is for others. And as soon as you're able, and this is one thing that I've very, very much been working through, so it really did kind of speak to me there for myself, is by be trying to remove myself from the outcome, about the people I'm trying to serve, help. Because if you make it about yourself, you're very much more easy to box yourself in. Because if it's about yourself, you're starting to worry about your doubts, your fears, all those sorts of things. If you make it about the people out there, you have to show up.
Yeah.
And the last piece there is like when you were talking there, is the other bit that sort of really sort of struck me there when you were talking about Maxwell. Is it what was his first name? Sorry,
John Maxwell.
John Maxwell. Yeah, you're saying apologies there. The fact that he says we're going to change a country. Do you mean it's like that's like, oof, if we're talking about sort of goals, ambitions? So when you hear that, oh, we're changing a country, what does that do to your sort of your energy or your thought process? How do you deal with a goal that sort of, to me, sounds huge? How do you deal with that?
Well, I mean, exciting to hear that at first. I mean, and it was not that we were going to change him, but we were going to start help the transformation of the country, because they are still. I mean, there's now in Guatemala 10 years later, out of the 14 million people, I think there's a figure like 3.5 million people have gone through this process, and Guatemala has been changing. There's still got challenges, but there has been changing. And as I said, in Ireland, I need to connect you to this lady, Joanne Hessian, phenomenal. She's got a team around her, and they're everywhere, and in Scottish rugby, and Irish rugby, and all those kind of places, right. Where they're bringing this process. But there was 150 of us, and for the first 3 days we trained. We found out what exactly we were going to do, so we became trained in the facilitation of this process, and we had to start working with interpreters because it was Spanish. And because the average age was 20, a lot of our interpreters were teenagers, 16, 17-year-old kids, and phenomenal, and then we for 3 days we were training big groups of people. I mean, it had to be big groups. We got 19,000 people in 3 days, and it was absolute mayhem, but it was phenomenal. And so from all walks of life, from the church to the fire brigade to the military intelligence academy. I was in one of them, where colonels and generals, and the experience, it was absolutely mind-blowing. And every day I woke up and not only for ourselves, and at nighttime at the meal, people were talking about the experiences they had during the day, and there was people crying from our lot, crying, and because you never know until you know how deeply that touched you. And I never expected all of that, because I said we were going to go and help other people. But as one of our groups said, I think we're stealing of these people, because what we got out of that, as we feel, is far more than them. And that's where that significance is. And to know that, by making a difference in other people's lives, if we could all do a little bit more, whatever that looks like, it doesn't have to be intricate, it doesn't have to be big, it doesn't have to cost money, because significance has nothing to do with money. It has to do with your heart set. And when it gets into the depth of your soul, And once you'd never want to stop it.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point to echo there, in a sense of, and I hadn't thought of that way. So I really appreciate the way that you're explaining significance there, because the other element, when we're in a position where we can help and serve other people, it's a not only okay, but it's a good thing that you as the person is helping get satisfaction or gets fulfillment from that, and don't feel that it's like I'm self-centered or I'm selfish. It's like
No.
no, because otherwise it's like it should feel good. It can feel good to be that person that's serving and helping. And I'm sure, like I'm no doubt that like that sort of feeling you got, as you say, like that was you had to whatever transition out of your job, but that
Mm.
was it. You were done. Like you had to go. So if you kind of like that's what coming up 10 years, so
Mm.
how I'm sure it's drastic, but really, how did your life change once you really went all in on this?
Oh, and completely, because as I said, at first I didn't have a proper plan. I'd already become a coach, and I started speaker training and all those kind of things. And of course, all this development that was done over the years. I had no real idea what was going to happen, but I thought, if I don't do this, and people were
Or just
easy
hearing.
to be tempted. I'll go back, maybe do 1 month on and 1 month off, which was an offer on the table. And I thought, but you'll get caught up again, like and you're back to square one before you know it, because we get busy. So I thought, no, I need to cut this completely. I walked away. I felt, not that it was ever, I never hated my job. That was a good thing, but I felt as if this heavy coat fell off my shoulders, and then from all of a sudden, from traveling around the world and doing all kinds of things in the oil industry to a totally different world. But I mean, the same thing was that I was working with people and
Yes.
adding value to people wherever I could. And that took a while, because another thing that happened, of course, is and I work with that now as well, is that you go from being in a work environment where you're an employee to
Yes.
all of a sudden you're everything in the mirror. You're
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
And I say that was the biggest shock for me. And not the fact that I
Mm.
walked away from the job, but the biggest shock was that all of a sudden, and I was not prepared for that. And
Mm.
I tell that in a story as well about entrepreneurship. And I say, and I was lucky that very shortly after that I met my wife at leadership training in America, of all places. And she's been an entrepreneur all her life, and for more than 25 years. And I honestly don't know where I would have been now. I would have still been doing what I do best. But I mean, we're still looking at scaling this up and things like that. And that's how we networking. And that's how I've had the absolute privilege to meet you at these networking events. And but it is change is inevitable for
Yes.
all of us anyway. And we years ago, like 40-50 years ago, you talked about a job for life in the mines and
Yeah.
all this kind of stuff, and but that is not the case anymore. So change is going to happen, whether you choose to do something about you
Yeah.
to change. And I always say that to people, see, we need to realize, and it already started in martial arts, you never stand still.
Yep.
See, there is no such thing. You can celebrate successes and all that kind of for a very short period of time rather than years. But there is one thing that's going to happen. You're either going to climb to greater heights, and that doesn't have to be, something massive, but to your next level, whatever that looks like for you. And everybody's different. Or you're going to slide down a slippery slope. So I always say to people, put on your hiking boots and start climbing, because you owe it to yourself.
Yeah.
And that's where you keep filling yourself up. I mean, I've got books around me, and I do all kinds of things, courses that I attend, and even now this AI, we need to get involved in that as well, of course. But there is always something that we can do, and apart from anything, it keeps this going much better.
Yeah. For sure.
I'm also part of a group called the Self-Learning Revolution Academy. And, self-learning, that doesn't mean you have to do it by yourself, but you need to be motivated and disciplined to do this yourself. There was one quote that says, there is the only way that you can guarantee that your tomorrow will be better is if you do something to improve yourself today.
Yeah.
End of story.
That's
and
it.
that's and that comes back to that the only person we can control is the person that's inside of us. And there's all kinds of stories about reacting and responding and be the change and all that kind of stuff. But it starts here. It needs to get in here somewhere. And also you mentioned it earlier that the power of attraction. So you need to be very careful what you think about. Some people are always miserable, and they wonder why they're miserable. I say, well, change your thinking, you change your life.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. And again, it's like the amount of sort of knowledge you're sharing. One of the things I'd really love to go into again, go back to, is where you said about the fact that you went from employee to essentially entrepreneur, if you want, and the word you used.
Mm.
And I know because
Yeah.
a lot of the people that listen are kind of either in that space or they're thinking of that space. And so what I'd love to know, if you're able to share, is for yourself, was it a sort of, what was the harder thing? Was it a mind shift, a mindset shift, or was it actually learning how to be an entrepreneur? The sort of, there's all the sort of things that are maybe out there, and it says, oh, you need to be able to do marketing, or you need to be able to, know about numbers, and scale is one of the words you use. So was it all that stuff, or was it really in your head?
All of the above. That's the easy answer. But you're looking for a bit more than that. Well, the thing is, I think we need to change in here,
Yeah.
because let's face it, we've been programmed, and people like to argue with me, and that's fine if you're happy that you don't think you have been. Then if I say how much is 3 times 6, you say 18. I said you've been programmed. But it's just a simple, funny thing. But we've all been programmed. By our environment, by our parents, by our past, by the people around us, by those we connect with. But that program is continuous. And at some point, and of course, Les Brown, who's also a friend and mentor of mine.
Fabulous.
He was an amazing guy. I mean, his whole family is. But he also said that, you become like the 5 or 10 people closest around you. And he's not the only one who said it, but and so if we are surrounded by other employees, other people, and you hope they're positive, because they're negative, you become negative yourself, and sometimes you get tired of it. Like, and I was like that. I climbed out of that pretty rapidly. But the thing is, once you make a shift like that, I always say to people, maybe it is better if you planning this. I mean, for me, it was just a case, boom, I'm done.
Yeah.
Even though I knew that it was just a missing piece of my jigsaw puzzle.
Yeah.
But for most people, they think about it, and then they go to do it, and then all of a sudden they get lost. They start doing stuff, and we become busy, and we don't become effective. And that's what happened to me too. I became very busy creating stuff, and what else can I help people with? But as you said, the marketing and all that. But I think the first thing that happens is we need to start to train our mind a bit differently. I mean, there is nobody telling you what to do. There is nobody telling you how to run things anymore, or to get up in the morning and you be at work at 8 o'clock and this is what you do, because it's interesting, and we talk about that as well. I talk about mindset and mind power as well. But when you there is employers, they get very frustrated with their people, because it says, they only do what I tell them to do. And I said, well, but that's how we've been trained. We're not supposed to ask awkward questions. We need to do what we need to do, but most people do very little else. But everybody's got some desires, and people say, I'm okay. In Scotland, they say, it's not so bad.
Yeah.
I mean, what kind of answer is that? Is that how you want to live the rest of your life? But it's a standard answer. We are all individuals. We are all unique. We all have something inside of us that we can do with our life that makes us, I wouldn't say matter, because we all matter anyway. But
it's back to that word significant again, isn't it?
I didn't want to repeat that again, but I mean, it comes up, but that makes us feeling that we are worth, that we've not wasted our lives. They talk about the dash, and people say, what's the dash? The dash on your gravestone between when you were born and when you die. And again, it's there's 2 days in your life that are most important: the day you were born and the day you discover why. And that is where the problem is. You talked about values, and people might not know their values, but also they don't know their why. They know there's something more, but they don't do anything about it either. There's a great book about it, Find Your Why, by Simon Sinek.
Yeah.
And videos. You can, if you really want to discover what you were born to do, and we all have that thing. And that doesn't mean that we're all going to be at those levels, but we can all be at that level instead of being there. Let's get ourselves out of that hole of frustration, of anger, of negativity, of anxiety and of complaining all the time, because that doesn't do any good. And when we then find out that we know we are what we think about, then maybe it's the thinking. And when I said that small quote earlier on, thoughts become actions, actions become habits, and habits become your destiny. That means if you reverse engineer that, you need to change your thinking to change your future. And it is simple, but it's not easy.
Yeah.
Because we're caught in our past. We're caught in a web of our past and our surroundings that keep pulling us back. And nobody wants you to succeed, because they know fine that if you succeed, you're the same as them. Then I could have succeeded as well. So rather than becoming uncomfortable, the smoking, for example.
Yeah.
I'll try to stop smoking. Now I stopped smoking, so I know how that works. But many years ago. But trying is not an option. And what happens when you fail? Then the people who are around you who are smoking anyway, well, at least you gave it a try. Well done. But you're smoking again. You know. And it's a simple example, but it is with everything.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the things that really reflect on there and sort of really resonate with me in a sense of that whole thing of programming, because I can definitely sort of relate to that in a sense of, like, sometimes I used to think of it back when I'd be sort of going through my own sort of personal reflections and developments and stuff, thinking, go to school. If you keep your head down, answer the questions, do the work, great. You'll then, if you get to your exams, if you do, you get to uni, great. So you get that little bit more freedom, but you still got that regulation stuff. And, so it's still put your hand up, I still remember that even at uni, in a sense of things like, and then it's a case of the job, and you are in a sense of like, it's there to fit a mold, to fit a requirement, to do a process. And it was even then, I said, when my sort of previous career in working in the financial service industry, essentially if you look at it from a certain perspective, it's the modern day factory. The way that processes and systems turn out. A piece of work lands on your desk, you do your little bit, you click a button, it disappears, it goes to someone else across the way, and they do their button. So it's essentially it's the production line, but it's just on a screen. It's essentially what it is. And you can do well in it, and I did. People can enjoy it, but I think it's very much in the sense the way that you explained it there. There can either be, I think it can happen two ways. You can get little increments of, this isn't me, or what, little increments, or it can just hit you and go, what in God's name am I doing, type thing. And but you have to, as you say, if you don't even sometimes challenge that voice and answer and try and ask a better question for yourself, you can just easily quiet. And it could sometimes feel easier to make that voice quieter, the one that's kind of, what are we doing here? Why this? Push it aside, because you might have to uncover some stuff that's a bit more challenging. But once you do answer those questions, it's like the blinkers are just, and you can really take off in a different way. So I really appreciate you sharing it from your perspective. The one thing there I want to go to now then is, because you've mentioned it a few times, and I think to go in a little bit more, is the whole thing of where you really do, obviously, a lot of what you do is your work is the leadership piece. Because I think you mentioned it at the very start, in sense of, or maybe before we started recording, is like the whole thing of leadership, where we are in a sense of at a you could say more of an individual level, but at a wider level of leadership at the moment. It seems to be a bit of a, I don't know, in a sense of a large scale political, that doesn't seem to be, we all have our thoughts on it, but what does, I suppose the first question I'll ask on it is, what do you think is leadership?
We've got so many different connotations and titles that they've attached to it. First of all, leadership, like management, it's not a title and it's not a position, it's a behavior. That's first and foremost. And yes, of course, there's differences. And also, there is so many different ways people describe leadership, but leadership to me is very simple. It's all about building relationships. Because again, it's a quote by John Maxwell, but it really mentions it fairly well. It says, leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. And then people say to me, but how do I get this influence over people? No, that's the wrong question for starters. Influence with people. So then I say, you know, the way the way your leadership grows is if you can become if you can influence more people in a positive way, so have influence with people, and you can only do that if you start building relationships. And that has got many areas. Maybe some people build relationships at work, but the real relationships start to appear when you start being interested in the other people. So not being interesting, but being interested. So that means quite often you need to talk less and listen more. So, and that's where relationship, you know, it's walking over on the shop floor and not saying, oh, by the way, have you done this yet? No, I heard your son was in hospital the other day. How did you get on? You know, those kind of things build a relationship, because most of them don't do that. And you can do that at any level, to talk to other people about the things that matter to them, not to you. And you can talk about that as well, of course. So how do you build better relationships? And you've already mentioned it, ask better questions. And how do you ask better questions? Listen more. And it all comes down to listening. So when we build relationships with other people, and we don't build the same relationships at the same levels with everybody around us. That's all different. You know, we a bit different with our spouse, with our children, with our colleagues, with our friends. It's all different. But we can build relationships with everybody. And again, if we start showing everybody respect, my wife has got a great quote on that, or two actually, about, you know, the problems we have. And you mentioned that as well about leadership around the world. And maybe we'll go there yet. But the first thing is that we don't agree with each other, and less so now. I mean, there is so much division driven into us, as far as I'm concerned, because divide and conquer works pretty well, apparently. But she says, she's a diversity, equity, inclusion specialist as well for 20 odd years, and she says, at the level of respect, everyone is equal. That's the first one. And the other one that comes side by side, and she's actually writing the book Compassionate Leader of Influence, because she is compassion. But she says, we don't. The good news is we don't have to like everybody we come into contact with. She says, however, there is a however. The way you show respect to the person in front of you is a direct reflection on your character, not theirs. So when you put those two together, and that's how you can start building relationships, you know, show respect. And we talked about that earlier on as well, about respect, but start asking some questions. You know, if we don't know this by now, I always said it, you know, you only get answers to the questions you ask, and ChatGPT and those kind of things have really proven it. If you want the best out of it, you need to learn to start asking better questions. But do we do it only on chat now because we're learning this? Or do we do it with our family? Do we do it with our friends? Do we do it with our colleagues? Do we do it with strangers? Asking some wonderful question. How are you? And people say, oh, I'm fine. I'm not so bad. Yeah, but no. How are you really? That will floor them, because they never ask that. I mean, I stand at a desk at a checkout desk till, and people ask me how I am. I says, you know, I'm fantabulous, but I'm getting better, or I'm pretty good, but I'm getting better, or I'm improving. And they look at me, and it's unusual, because, you know, most people have stock answers, but I mean, I do it because it's the truth, and you have to speak yourself into it as well. But it's so strange to see the reaction of people, because you know, and they smile and they laugh at it, and you get a conversation going then, you know. But that's it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, I love that. I love that sort of perspective on it as well, because it absolutely can. And that's where I think people, as you said there a bit earlier in the chat, actually, to go in this piece, you say everyone has leadership within them and can be leaders. And I think, as you say, that sort of how the definition or the perspective of leadership can be misconstrued in the sense, oh no, it's a position, it's a title, it's a this, because anyone can lead at any point, because they say by building relationships. So even the whole thing of a leader within your family, within your friendship group, within your teams, within your colleagues, you know, you don't need to be appointed. And that was one of the things when I'm just thinking out loud here, but when we went back, I go back to my career in a sense of in the financial services industry, and I remember reading a book, probably got it around here somewhere. It was a coaching book for the working coaching. I can't remember the name. Fernandez, I think, was the name of the book. The author, and this whole thing of like leadership or management within the work environment, and it's like the person who does all the work, you know, does really well at it, and then suddenly you're knighted one day as manager, but that person then goes, what the does that mean? You know what I mean? It's like you've suddenly been, suddenly now, today, you are now the leader, and without sort of really knowing what it actually is. But so there's that programming thing, it's like, well, actually, if because companies are still a need to exist, so I know you work with them, it's changing that programming to go, no, leadership isn't to sort of tell this, do that, get the numbers. It's about, as you say, those relationship that you build with the people, and you say leadership with them, influence with them versus over them. So it's really sort of a powerful way to put it, in a sense of it's a relationship way of doing it, not I say you do.
Yes, and that becomes that's a boss.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Like, and it's a, and then that's what you, and that's where you get those sort of, again, like the throwaway comments, oh, I've not, you know, it's not so bad, or, you know, got to do, because it's like that sort of feeling that way low. The other point there, I've just remembered there, what you say about the interacting, I think I agree with you when it comes to relationships, in the sense of the level and the diversity, from the most closest ones to the stranger on the street or the person at the checkout. And it's funny sometimes, I think, I don't know if there's sometimes there's a cultural thing as well, but say when I visit my family in the UK and I go into a supermarket or into a pub or something, it's very much more an Irish thing over here that everyone will ask how you are. It's like, it's just, before you've even got into the door, they're asking how you are. So there's very much, so I'll do that to people out of just, that's just the way I do it now. And sometimes they just look at me as if I'm like interrogating them. I was just like, oh, I'm just asking how you're doing today. It wasn't a sort of a quiz. So it's to be able to break that down, and just, when you're asking someone how they are, really mean it. And then someone asks how you are, really answer it. It's amazing the connection you can have in just the briefest of moments if you're open to that.
And I like that, because it's the same in Scotland. They do the same, you know. That's, and then they talk about the weather and things like that. But I mean, that's not a real conversation, but that's standard. But I like that, because in that split second, you never know what goes on behind closed doors, as I said, and that might not be the house door, but these closed doors, and to be able to touch somebody for just a second, and I believe this honestly, it might save lives. And then people say yes, and I say, but in the long term, it might save yours, because when you give that whole idea of opening your heart and opening yourself to the possibilities that, and sometimes people will ridicule you, and oh, I mean, the last 3 years, I mean, I'm also talk about I speak my truth, but I don't do it to be right. I do it to bring my perspective, and that's all I bring with any research I do. But I still bring my perspective. That doesn't mean that you need to agree, but I will respect your opinion, and I will never call you names. But I mean, it's happened a lot to me. But I say I will not go down to that level, because that doesn't make me any better. But I have conversations with these people, and to try to understand, and sometimes they come up to a level where we can have at least a discussion, because the only difference between, see, if we want to have discussions with people and people are closed-minded, and that's, I mean, everybody, they say an opinion is like a belly button, everybody's got one. But the reality of being able to have your own, to voice your own opinion in a way that doesn't degrade other people, but that we can have a conversation about it, then we both learn, or a group can learn. But it is really, and especially in the last few years, it has really shown that people have become very, not, I would say argumentative, but they've just become very much more, you know, I'm right. Because and that's wrong. Yes, we might be right, but as you know, what have we learned by just saying, okay, my way or the highway? And again, that's part of leadership too, because you know, leadership at its, you mentioned it a few times as well, at its basic level, it's not a title or an authentic leader, a transformational leader, or this kind of leader. No, leadership is just building relationship, because if we can build relationship, because you know, it doesn't matter how much you want to lead, but if nobody is following, does that make you a leader or what? And that happens with the boss. People do what they need to do because they're told they have to do it, and then you're not a leader. And unfortunately, it's there is 5 levels of leadership, and the first one is that level. And unfortunately, 70% of people, when they arrive at that corner office, the title, the car parks space with their own nameplate on it, when they arrive there, they think they've arrived, and we've mentioned that already. And they don't go any further, and that is in a way sad. But also, and you mentioned it, all of a sudden they're pushed into the limelight because they were good at what they do, and they get this promotion, and they were never prepared for it. I mean, we actually had a conversation the other day with an organization. They said, there's people brought up from the shop floor, and it's a good thing, rather than bring an outsider in who doesn't know the whole system and all that. But then what? And then you need to be able to train them, and that's and give them the guidance and the support, and hold their hand when it's needed. And let's face it, us men are really bad at it, asking for help. We throw the manual away, and then when we can't sort a new TV out or whatever, then we ask our 14-year-old to say, can you help, give us a hand here, but we don't read those kind of things. And life is like that.
No, absolutely. And it's definitely that sort of that moment of being able to recognize it when it's in yourself is one of the biggest things, I think, when you're kind of like, when you both ways, when you realize, oh, actually I am just either following, in a sense, being told what to do, versus also the times sometimes I think when you're put into a situation where you kind of go, you take over, and say, not take over, but you just go into the role where you actually are leading. It comes from a space where, this is where I was going, is like, there's a difference between, I think, wanting to make a difference versus wanting to win. And sort of, there's a bit of, I think, this spread into some sort of areas of leadership where it's about the winning versus about the serving. It's about, I'm the number one versus the real sort of causal reason for being it. So a lot of what you shared, so that's from my experience. If I'm in a leadership position or I'm doing something leading, it's because I care about what I'm doing, and I care about the people that are with me. So one of the things I did a few years ago, like, I'm into running, so that's one of my sort of things. I do marathons, I do triathlons, things like that. And so I did London just a few weeks ago. I did the London Marathon, which was amazing.
Wonderful, well done.
Thank you. But one of the things I did is I took people on. I did running clubs with them. Like, when I got into it, and I was going to take people out to do couch to 5Ks and stuff, and it was about like, on me showing off how good I am at running. It's not saying, oh, so I can tell you all how it's about like, I found something that I really love, and I'd like to try and see if I could find other people who might go and find something that have an enjoyment in it too. So that to me was like, so it wasn't something, oh, I'm putting myself out, or now I'm going to be a leader. I was like, I'm going to go running. Who wants to come with me? And I'll show you all the things you can do, about how you can do it and the rest. So that was, when it comes from that place of, no, I'm going to help those people, it's different. It wasn't about, oh, they'll think I'm great, or they'll think I'm that. So it's not about me winning, it's about them helping. Whereas I don't know, but if you share that experience, I just find it's so frustrating where it's like, no, but our side won, or this side won, especially in politics at the moment. It's purely about, well, we're the ones in power, we won this time, you won that time. And it's like, well, actually, but what about the actual people? What about the service of whatever you're trying to do? That's where I think, and it's a shame, it's at the very top level, that leadership isn't what you've explained. It isn't about building relationships.
Oh, you mentioned so many great things, and I like the running analogy, because I mean, you're a good runner. You could run ahead and say, try to keep up with me and just run, and nobody learns anything. After a while, the rest of them drop off because they say, he's running too fast. He's good at it, but as you said, it's guiding others to become more interested in something that you're interested in is always satisfying all by itself. But there, I mean, so that could be a whole different conversation there. Leadership, Les Brown said it a long time ago, and he said leadership is failing around the world because of a lack of values. And first of all, we get back to where we were earlier, that they don't value people, for starters. And they have no value system, because we're not talking about massive big things. We're talking about respect. We're talking about and the respect for the other. It's not, as you said, it's winning or losing. Again, it's a quote. Sometimes you win, sometimes you learn. It's a much better one than losing. But we are programmed, if you say to something, sometimes you win and sometimes and everybody says lose. I say, no, learn. Try to adapt that. But we've seen it around the world for too long now, and you know, the things that keep coming out and the things that are happening around us, there is, I wouldn't say no, but if there is very little real leadership. We need real leaders who lead because of the fact, and you mentioned it, the fact that they care for their people, because we, the people, have put them in those positions because we thought they would serve us, because they promised. You know, the kissing babies' heads until after the election type of thing, and shaking hands or whatever, and then everything falls by the wayside. But it really, again, it comes down to a lack of values. Because if you had integrity, if you had honesty, if you had transparency, if you had respect, if you Napoleon, the little French fella, many years ago said, "Leaders are sellers of hope." Now there is none of them selling any hope. They're selling a program they've got attached to, and they for whatever reason they do this. And I mean, don't want to go into those kind of things just now, because that got me into trouble before. But I mean, we need to look at these kind of people that are supposed to be our examples, because that's another thing about a leadership role, a role model. You know, a role model should somebody who leads. Whether it's the youngsters in the pops, that shows my age, pops, the pop era, but in the youngsters look up to people, whether it's a rapper or a film star and everything, and they have a responsibility as well as an accountability, and a lot of that kind of stuff is missing. The drugs and all that, and we've got so much nonsense now as well. Like, and I think it's all to divide us. I mean, so many different things that are turning up on our doorstep, and these days, that we need to do our own research. We need to question everything, but also the first thing we should do, we should question everything. That makes us creative again, rather than fall under the trap of being programmed. But we need to also question ourselves.
Yeah.
Better questions we need to ask for the person in the mirror, you know, the person that looks back at you every morning, and that's the one you need to care for. And I fully believe I wrote about, in fact, I wrote a book about self-care as well, which says self-care isn't selfish. Becoming healthier happens by choice, not by chance. But that's holistically, because I hear as well, and that's here, as you know, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and physically. I mean, people say about becoming healthy, but if we are going to lead in any form or shape, we need to look after ourselves. We need to build it. We need to be healthy, because we're no good to anybody if we're ill or dead. But also we need to develop ourselves, personally develop ourselves intentionally every single day. We need to build our lives on a solid foundation of the values that are intrinsic values to us, that we wouldn't compromise on. We wouldn't compromise if we say, you know, we don't have to say these values, we live them.
Yeah.
No, and that living is a value, that is integrity, that is honesty, that could be, you know, listening to people is important, whether it's forgiveness, restraint, boundaries, hope, developing people. There is so many of those kind of things, but we should all have a little list of those kind of values that are important to us, and read them every day. And if we don't understand them yet, go and research them. There's plenty of material available. Go and research and say, you know, that is where I want to build my life on. That's what I want to be the example. I mean, my grandparents in these values, when we do these every week, we also quote people who we think as an inspiration to us in those values, and that could be dead or alive. And the amount of times I quote my grandparents, and it you know, I didn't see it at the time when I was a young kid, especially they were farmers. But I've learned so much, and the fact that I still now see how much of an inspiration they were to me in my value system, and that will carry through to my parents as well, of course. But we need to start getting a grip of ourselves. You know, we need to, because, and we need to, as adults, we have a duty to guide our young people, and to speak up and stand up, because I also I work with young people as well, because I think everybody's got a voice, everybody's got a story, and this is your time, by the way. So to help them to bring out that story, to bring out that voice, and it's not for everybody to be inspired by everybody, but everybody needs. There's some people that need to hear your story, but it'll never happen if you take it to the grave with you because you fell silent. Because if you open your mouth, people will ridicule you, or the gaslight you get, all that kind of stuff now. And I think we need to we need to show compassion. And I mean, as I said, my wife is compassion, and that's also in leadership, the kindness and compassion and the caring that we need to show as leaders. It's not just a hard-nosed, I'm the boss, you follow me, and if not, tough, you're no good to me.
Yeah.
No, people, we always this evolving technology that we've got now. We were at a technology expo last week, and I was talking to people there that says, it's wonderful to see all this automation and all this stuff developing. There was a robotic dog walking about there as well. I said, as long as he doesn't put his leg up against mine.
Yeah.
But I mean, I said all this wonderful stuff, but I says in the end we can never forget the people, because if we only think of them as numbers, people don't leave companies, by the way. People leave people.
Yeah.
So it doesn't not, and they talk about, but we invest in them. Yeah, well, if you invest in them, also invest in them at the heart level to make sure that they matter as people and not just as numbers.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love there in a sense of what you did, in sense of, because we were in a sense of talking about that sort of the leaders we may look at, and the leader. And the thing is, like, I think in some ways it can be quite easy or convenient to say, well, I'm not succeeding because of them. I am not succeeding because of look at the leadership we've got, so it's easy to kind of sort of offlay our sort of potential responsibility or accountability to ourselves, or that challenge to ourselves to and blame or put it on. Now, it doesn't mean that they're necessarily doing quote unquote a good job or not, but there is always an element of personal responsibility and also an amount of personal agency. Do you know what I mean? There, that you can be that sort of leader to yourself or the people around you, and you can take care of whatever it is you want to do. And that thing of, and again, avoiding from sort of political perspectives, but there is an element of like, you can do it yourself in a sense of with the support of other people, or with the support of hundreds, if not thousands of people out there. But by just offloading your worries, fears, and doubts because of something else, a leader who's going to change every few years, or a boss that's going to change, they're going to keep doing their thing. So I love it when you have to bring it back to yourself and what you're capable of doing.
And again, I love that so much. You brought that together so well, and it is so easy. And I call it blame storming. Blame everybody else, the politician, the boss, the neighbor, the dog, everybody else but yourself. And in the end, it's an African proverb. It says, what happens around you and what happens to you is not as important as what happens within you. And the African saying comes from that. It says, when there is no enemy within, the enemy outside can do no harm. And I took that back into my martial arts. I showed them how this happened, because it's about the stillness we can have. Because we get all this stuff, and people watch the television. I have no television. I haven't bought a newspaper for more than 35 years by choice. And that people say, but don't you know? Yes, I know, fine. If there's something that is important enough, I need to know it. Somebody will tell me. But it was by choice, garbage in, garbage out. But we are so surrounded by noise, and most of it is negative, because that makes easier conversation. Success stories were never that popular, and I like them. I get inspired by them at all levels. But we need to kind of really give ourselves a good shaking and say, what can I do? Because as long as we keep blaming our circumstances, blaming the outside, nothing will ever change. And again, it's Gandhi's "be the change you want to see in the world." But that means that if we want to see a change in the world, we can't wait for them, the power of them. What can I do to become better? I mean, I also do a talk about intentional living, and I say, we all have good intentions.
Yeah.
But it's not about that, because the world is the roads are paved with good intention. But I say the difference between good intentions and being intentional is that when you have good intentions, you might do something good occasionally, but when you live an intentional life, you do something good continually, and that means waking up every day. And it's not that every day you have to do hours. Like if you want to get fit, that you need to stand 2 hours on the treadmill, or you need to eat rubber food for the rest of your life. Or if you want to build yourself, that you need to watch an hour of TED Talks or read 2 hours of a book. No, Les Brownell said 30 pages a day changes life. And And you can watch a TED talk, but do something that will improve your life, because when you build it, over time, all these small things have got a compound effect. And before you know it, in 6 months or a year time, you are a far better person. I'm not saying you're a bad person if you get offended easily. But I'm saying you will become even better, and we are all meant to live the best life we can, and that does not depend on anybody else. And as long as we keep waiting for somebody else, and as long as we keep depending on somebody else, and as long as we keep blaming somebody else, we live somebody else's life and dream.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I absolutely. I mean, it's so powerful the way you shared it, and the thing I'd add on to that, in the sense of the things we can do for ourselves, is absolutely. And as you say, we can get so easily, I think, get caught up in one sense of that blame thing, but also the searching. I've come to think about this more recently, like actually really starting to sort of dislike the phrase of like life hack or this or that, and thinking, and this, and obviously it happens is what it is, but the trending thing and what things in, it's like, oh no, if someone says, oh no, to solve your life you have to just go sea swimming. Oh no, you have to take cold showers. Oh no, it's oh no, you got to go get up at 5 and then do this. Oh no, you got to go for yoga. Oh no, and it's just this list of continual thing, and it's like, it's one of those things absolutely could be the thing for you, but it doesn't mean, because I think if you force yourself into thinking this is, oh no, this is the thing that's going to solve it all, it's like, actually, all those things could help you. And it's not all things, those things could work. It's like every diet could work. They all do work if you do it. But it's like, but to go back to the sort of the running analogy I used to have, is like, some people will come out running for me, and they may be running me for a few weeks, and they turn to me and go, actually, I hate running. Why are you still out running with me then? It's like, I love it. It's like part of it. It's like, I do love the times when I'm suffering, because it's part of what I'm trying to seek. How far can I go? Can I kill, the test of the body and stuff? So there's part of me that, like, I enjoy pushing myself to those parts as well. But it's like, keep trying to find that thing, but not as a shortcut, as a thing that's going to build you up. There's no shortcut to challenging yourself. All of these things can help you, could help you, but it's how it will build you up, not make it easier. None of it's easy. It's just, so find the thing that's going to really, whether help you, inspire you, light you up, but don't take it as thinking it's going to make it easier or shorter. There's no crack in that. There's no fun in that.
No. And I love that when you said, you push yourself, and it takes a certain amount of discipline, and there's another word that's been missing, because people they throw away people, they change things 10 times in a week, and it's not the commitment to doing something. Because people sometimes say discipline, and they think about army and all that kind of stuff. No, it's your commitment to you.
Yes.
Because as you said, you could have easily given up the first time you really felt pain, and you had pain in muscles. You didn't even know you had muscles.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
No,
I was just going to say, because it's like, I don't know, just to elaborate on that, because say, like, so some of the bigger events I've done. So I've done sort of Ironman events, and I did sort of Ironman. I did Ironman Barcelona, and I did Ironman Cork, so a few years ago. And when I was doing training for Cork, that was probably when, like, I was, kind of tail back a little, a few years ago, but that was like real peak in a sense. So Ironman's 140.6 miles in one day, swim, bike, run. So, and I did a lot of training, a lot of workout with my wife, because she was doing it, but she wasn't doing that race. So it was just me. And I do a lot of my cycle training. I chose to do it on an indoor trainer. That's kind of my preference. It was what it suited my lifestyle, or logistics and stuff like that. So this thing of, like, no one's forcing me to do an Ironman. I have to pay for the privilege to do it as well. Actually, I have to pay for the race entry. I have to pay for accommodation, flights, etc., travel, what have you. But it's pretty much, it's 40 weeks generally as training program. That's, that's pretty much your year you're doing it. And so it's 6 training sessions, 6 days a week, maybe 8 sessions a week. And your Saturdays or one day a week that's it. You're just training. And I'm sitting in a room cycling for 3-4 hours, then going for a run or whatever it is. So people think when you tell them you're doing a marathon or an Ironman, it's the day itself is the tough day. That day is the celebration. That is the moment when you feel like an athlete, when you feel like you're winning your Olympics medal, that because you're not going to get to the Olympics, but that's your moment.
Yeah.
The commitment is the previous X number of weeks. That's where you really find out who you are. The day itself is putting it all together and having a great, essentially, day out. As hard as it is, it really is the celebration. That piece you said about commitment is like, I have to put the alarm on. I have to show up. I have to get to the pool. I have to get on the bike. It's really about finding out, not do you want it enough, because want is a tricky thing. Just because you want it, that's not necessarily enough. It's the commitment to finding out, are you willing to go to the place to find out who you really are? That, and then wow. It's how can you then use that across everywhere? That's it. Those sorts of, if you're willing to go to those depths in that, where else are you willing to go to that depths in?
Wow, and that's so powerful, and you're absolutely right. And I mean, I just think about this admiral who did a YouTube about making your bed, and that quote that came to me just now. He says, "The way you do some things is the way you do everything." And that keeps you training, because I mean, I watched I know from the town in Invergordon I come from, Tom and Luke Stoltman. Tom was he's second this year, but he's been world's strongest man, and the world's strongest brothers. I mean, they're phenomenal inspiration. But he says they've got kids coming to them and say, I want to become a strong man, and can you teach me? And he's quite blunt about it. He says, there's no hope in hell that I'm going to do that right now, because you haven't even been in the gym for a week yet. Go into the gym for 2 years, really give it your best shot. And if you're still interested, because again, there's a lot of pain barriers to be had with that kind of, you know, that's not for the faint-hearted. And to see them, I mean, people say they don't look, especially Tommy, 6'7", and he doesn't look like an athlete, but he's got muscles all over. But the work ethic. And that's what you're really talking about. It's got to be a work ethic, and if people give up, we've seen it in martial arts as well. And people said to me, "Oh, I would like a black belt," and I take it off and I say, "Here you go." But I say, "But I'll tell you one thing: if you're gonna put that belt on, I'm gonna practice with you as if you were a black belt."
Yeah.
Then they're a little bit more hesitant, but it is. But the thing is, in this day and age, even more so, the microwave, people stand tapping their feet in front of a microwave when it's on for 30 seconds, when it used to be take 5 to 10 minutes before. I mean, their feet would be sore by then. But it's all the now. No delayed gratification. And you need to work on, because that delayed gratification is that day what you talked about. It's your celebration, because all the pain was before that. And most people are not willing to go through their pain barrier, whatever that looks like, whether it's mentally, physically, emotionally. Les Brown always said, and that really talks into that. It says, we're going to fall down in life. You know, that's a given. It says, when you fall down, make sure you fall on your back, because he says, if you can look up, you can get up. And that is what a lot of people are afraid to do. The same as he said, well, you know, you don't drown falling in water, you drown staying in it. And so many people fall down and they never get up again. And what happened, to come back to the very beginning in Guatemala, it was, you know, in the end, people have a choice. They can throw their towel in the ring, or they can throw their heart in the ring. And when you throw your heart in the ring, when you go all in, we heard it in poker and all that, I'll go all in. That means everything you've got is on the table. When you go all in life, and it's got to start somewhere. It might have to start with a little bit. As you said, you might go and run 2 miles and you feel really bad the next morning, but you decided you're going to become a marathon runner or something. And then the next day, you know, you're kind of not feeling like it, but you're going to do it anyway. And it's that attitude. I do whatever it takes. And if you don't know whatever it takes, find out what you want to do. Go and talk to somebody who's already done what you want to do, so they can at least mentally prepare you and say, you know, you're going to hurt at times. And if you miss out a day, but get back on that saddle, get back on the horse, and keep going, because nobody's going to do life for you. And it says, if you want to live the best life, if you want to lead your best life, then you need to do the things that you're maybe sometimes not willing to do. And it is, if you did everything that is easy now, your life might be difficult later on. But if you do the difficult stuff now, your life will get easier because of what you said, the discipline. The celebration of life comes when you do the things that other people are not willing to do. They might ridicule you, they might call you names, and all that kind of stuff, because they don't understand what you've got going on in your life, and the passion you've got that drives you to get up every morning to make a difference in whatever way possible.
Yeah, that's I'm so glad you actually said that, because I was thinking of saying that earlier and I'd forgot. It's like, I think this is sometimes there could be so many sort of things that put people off when they're trying to change or challenge themselves, develop whatever it is, whatever area. And there will be points that sort of like that when you talked about earlier, the people around you and that group of people that you reflect you and who you are. There might be times when if you start to try and challenge yourself and change yourself, whether it be in your relationships, whether it be in your health, your fitness, your career, whatever it is, and you start elevating yourself up. I experienced this when I started getting into the fitness side of stuff and marathons and Ironmans, and I started getting the comments and stuff of like, "What are you doing? You're crazy." Even if they're saying it in jest, it's when they're repeatedly saying it, and and it's kind of like this thing of like, it's like you have to have that realization that they can think what they want, they can say what they want, but there's nothing to do. It's not going into me. That's their thing. They're projecting their thoughts, insecurities, whatever onto me. It's like I'm doing me in this situation. And you have to, when you really get into those points where you start to feel, and it's getting that little, you can feel in yourself, it's more edgy and there's challenges and stuff. And those comments can be the things that pull you back down. It's how you just go, let them say it and carry on. So I'm glad you said about people will say things.
Oh yeah.
You just have to be able to carry on with it. Yeah.
Yes, and as you said, and I like it how you say it. It's comes from their insecurities, their lack of self-belief, their low self-esteem, all those kind of, and it's quite often hurt people. I don't.
Yeah.
I mean, when I was bullied as a kid, I didn't understand the bully side, but I started to realize that. I mean, even my granddaughter, she said to me this morning, she showed me something on social media, and then she said, I'm fat. I said, well, you're not. I say, and I understand it, because as I said, when the bullying kept going on here after they stopped because I was too tall all of a sudden. But I said, but you're not. Yeah, but I mean, I think so. And my friends call me that. And I thought, well, some friends, for starters, but it's peer pressure as well. And the things that we have our doubts already, but then other people pull their doubts on. And I said, the power of the tongue. Once said, it can never be taken back. And then they started, of course, at some point with cyberbullying. The vast amount of especially young people, but adults are open to it as well, that are getting bullied in one way or another, whether it's at work, and it's quite often exactly what you said. It's their issues. And we need to be kind and compassionate as much as we can, even though it's difficult, because we don't know what's happening behind their closed doors. They might get beat every day at home, and the only way they can see is to fight them. Their life is a fight and a struggle all by itself. But I realized a long time ago that the bully needs as much help as the person's getting bullied. And for me, at first, that was tough to see when I was younger. But I saw it in our family as well, and in the schools, and I thought, well, it's a tough life out there. But if we can all do something every day intentionally for something else, for somebody else. It doesn't have to be 20, 30 people. It'd be lovely if you can, but do something nice for somebody else every day. And if we all started doing that, rather than say it's me, I can't come near you, and then we had all this social distancing, and I mean that to me is a crazy concept anyway. But I mean, we owe it, first and foremost, we owe it to ourselves, because the human touch is so underestimated, and it's so necessary. We're pack animals, basically. So if we can, and that's also a form of leading. When you step out and do something for somebody else, you're basically leading. It's like 6-year-old Johnny being the captain of his local football team, and they're still, the legs are going all over the place, but he's a captain. He's leading. Somebody else who you see it in I love these little sports analogies when you have kids, they're running on the track, and all of a sudden one kid is ahead, and he sees another one falling, and he goes back and gets him, and then they walk to the line together. I mean, that's leadership, and that's inspirational. Yeah. It's not just going over the line first. Yeah. It's going over the line together. And to take as many people with you. And that is, again, building relationships. And that is in a way, a value system that they have, that the caring and the compassion you've got for other people and at any age. And we need more. We need this more than ever before. That we need to, because there is a lot going on in our world, and there's a lot of people hurting more so than ever before. And I think we owe it to ourselves. We owe it to society to be the best we can be, and incorporate being kind, compassionate, helpful. Have a value system that we don't have to tell anybody about, but have a value system that we walk. And when we walk this, we don't have to ever. If you ever have to say, "I'm a leader," you're not a leader. If you have to tell people, or I have integrity, or if you have to tell me, then you've got a problem. But it is. We can be proud of ourselves and say, "I am." And most people don't know what they are, because they normally tell you what they do rather than who are you really. I mean, I'm kindness, I'm compassionate. Now that is what you are, a compassionate person, but you're not your job. You're not, okay, I am doing it. No. But people, again, they don't know that. But if you say, "I am," and fill that in, who are you really? Not what you do, but who are you as a person? If I asked your family members who you are, because once you get to know yourself and who you really are, then you can really ooze this out to other people. And there's good in everyone. I mean, most of the problems that are happening is not that a person is bad. No, they have a wrong behavior, and that can come from their environment, from their friends and all that. There was one thing that came to me when you talked there earlier on this about the people you associate with. There is a guy, and I met him a couple of times, wonderful guy. His name was Charlie Tremendous Jones. Everything was tremendous for him. He actually wrote a book, Life is Tremendous. But he's passed away now. But he said there is 3 things that will govern most of the rest of your life. He says, the things you hear, the things you read, and the people you associate with. And I says, now think about it. And I say, some of you might need to change one, but some of you might need to change all 3, but that's a choice. And Les Brown said at some point, he said, I had to say goodbye to my best friend. I says, it's not that I was never going to spend time with him, but I grew and he stayed. So it was kind of opening that gap up wider and wider. And I says, I can't be around you all the time anymore. We never cast away people, by the way. So don't understand that. But we might have to spend less time with some of the people that are a negative influence to us. And that's a choice. That's discipline. That's knowing our worth. It's not that saying I'm better than him, because we're not better than anybody else. We are different, but I'm developing at a different level. If he's comfortable where he is, or he has not got the inclination to improve himself or do whatever he can to make his life better, that is maybe the emotional state or the state he's in right now. But we need to show our compassion. We need to be kind, but we need to lift ourselves up as we're lifting others. Because again, it's something my wife says is, we cannot go down to somebody else's level, and we need to lift them up to ours. But however, if you're not developing yourself, what are you lifting them up to? Yeah. And that is about leadership. Leadership is about intentionally developing yourself and the skills you have to make a difference to other people every single day, not someday. And and leadership is all about running as well, because you led yourself every single day. Yeah. You had a plan. There's no doubt about it, because if you run, never mind an Ironman, even a marathon, if I could eat one of them, I certainly couldn't run one of them. But to do those kind of things, that says a lot about the person. I mean, I find we talked about it the other day, that somebody here ran a marathon, and it says, I bet you the first thing they asked them afterwards, how long did you take? Yeah. What does it matter? Yeah, so even if it took 7 hours, you ran 26.2 miles. I mean, you try to run 2.6 miles, but it is the craziest stuff that happens, And I say, for me, it's just, congratulations, man. I couldn't. And it's not. I'm not saying to people I could never do what you do,
Yeah.
I have not got the inclination to do that
Yeah.
because running is not my thing. But I also, some people say I can never do that. No, some of the things that you say you can never do, you don't know how yet.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and there's all those kind of things come to life, but we need to need to show ourselves first that we deserve to live well, that we are worth it, and that we might need help. We might need a coach. We might need
Yeah.
somebody to become our accountability partner. We need somebody. And I mean, I've got a book. This is my gratitude journal every day, and that's again an everyday thing.
Yeah.
That's part of my everyday thing. And when we can be grateful, I wake up every morning and say I'm blessed and highly favored, and I mean this because I wake up every day, and that's a blessing not everybody has. And that I'm blessed to be healthy, to all my to my best knowledge. But I feel healthy, and I'm healthy. I wake up every morning with a roof over my head. There is so many things that we're all grateful for, but if we only focus on the negative things that happen in life to us,
Yeah.
then we are slaves to our environment, and we need to become the master of our destiny. And that becomes by having these conversations and standing there and lead yourself first and foremost before you can ever hope to lead others well.
Absolutely. Wow. Yeah, and this has just been an unbelievable conversation, and I am so happy to have experienced it. I say I normally ask my guests as they come on for quotes that are important, but you've littered them out throughout the entire thing, and but every one of them and this is what I love about the ones that you shared throughout, from John Maxwell, from Les Brown, and the others, is the fact that when we really do allow ourselves to listen and take them in, it's not a nice thing to have, it's the applicability that it can change fundamentally who you are if you're willing to listen to it, apply it, and take action on those things, the things you say. So it's been, I've loved every minute of what you said. It's just been absolutely beyond powerful for just me. So I know the people who are going to be listening to this are just going to get such amazing value from it.
But for my side as well, I mean, I'm sure we could still be talking tomorrow at this rate.
For sure.
Because
sure.
I mean, your stories are so inspiring as well, and the analogies you come with, and they're so true to life. It's not just about running; it's life.
No,
There's much too. And I did a quote one time for only an 8-minute talk, and we needed a power quote, and so that was my quote, and it says, "I believe in a world where people are inspired to use their voice and lead rather than suffer in silence and follow." And that speaks into leadership and my passion for leadership and my passion for helping people to speak up and speak out, because we need to be more open at this age where we're getting censored left, right, and center. Whether it's the truth or our truth, that's irrelevant. But we need to be able to connect better with other people, and that needs. We don't need to all become public speakers, but we need to speak up. We need to speak. We can't remain silent for the rest of it and suffer, because that's what's happening. That's what happens to most people, whether it's being bullied or whether they can't connect with their friends or with their spouse or with their parents. So just learn to ask open-ended questions and all those kind of things. But there is so much around there. And as I said, I had no idea how long we'd be talking, but I thought, I mean, but
yeah,
I mean, I have loved every single minute of it, and I'm sure this won't be the last time that we connect anyway. It's here's another one quote that I want to, because
please.
I mean, people talk about coincidence and luck and all those kind of things, and Les Brown said this a long time ago, and again, because he's one of my friends and mentors, I love this too. He says, there is no such thing as coincidence. Coincidence is God's way of staying anonymous. And that's why I believe, the fact that we have met when we met, and the fact that we're here together and talking, and that we can both listen to each other and get inspired with each other, not just from each other, but with each other. I think, this has been absolutely stunning, and thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. I'll share one more with you as well, actually, where you got me thinking. I love that one from Les, and I absolutely love him in a sense of I've watched, I think, everything he's ever done. But one of the other ones when you're saying there about inspiration as well, and this is the one that I've been kind of really sort of sort of thinking about recently is this whole thing of to be inspiration, not imitation, because we can so easily get caught up in thinking, oh, I like, as you say, like your thing, you've done martial arts for however long you've been doing them, for whatever, since you were 17, like you said.
Yeah.
I kind of I'm into endurance sports. Some people
Mm.
they love the gym, or they love CrossFit. Some people love dancing. People, whatever the thing is, like, it's not to think, oh, James is doing marathons, I've got to do marathons. Oh no, Jan is a martial arts, I better take up martial arts, and then I'll be like Jan. It's like, no.
Mm.
That's imitation. You're trying to
Mm.
copy someone, and you're trying to think that if I do what they do, I'll be as happy and as good as them. No, the whole thing of to be inspired is you go, oh, they're doing what they're doing and they really love it. What if I did what I really loved?
Yeah.
That's it. It's like, don't think you have to copy. Taking inspiration is you listen to someone and go, hell yeah, I want some of that, but I'm going to do it my way. That's what I think.
Oh. And when you said that, and you mentioned Les Brown as well, what happened to me, maybe nearly 10 years ago, we were in a program. It was called Get Good First Speaker Club. It was phenomenal, the name they came out with. But I mean, basically to get better. And every month we had a 5-minute talk about a subject, and we needed to use a quote with a choice of 3 subjects and 9 quotes, and we needed to use 1 quote and 1 subject. But it were all, for the whole year, they were all connected together with the idea that at the end you would have a 60-minute keynote. But Les Brown was involved in that as well, and our speaker coach from the Maxwell leadership team as well. And after a couple of times, it was Paul Martinelli who was part of this whole team as well. He said, I love listening to you. You just sound like Les Brown. And it was crazy, because at first, already I had seen a lady, and I thought, if she was white, but if you just close your eyes, and the fact that she got a lady voice, I saw her on stage. Les showed us a video. She was exactly like Les, the mannerism, everything.
Mm.
And then when he said that at first, I thought, okay, I'm doing something right. But then exactly what you said there, I started thinking about it. Hold on a minute here. I mean, I love the guy to bits. He's amazing. But I says, I am not Les Brown. I learned from him. I learned from John Maxwell, from people like Nick Vujicic, no arms, no legs, hugely inspirational.
Mm.
But all these kind of people that we learn from. But we need to put that in our ball and make it our own. Whatever we want to do, and whether it's running or cycling or martial arts or whatever it is, be your authentic self, but
Absolutely.
be your best authentic self, because I know we all have a purpose, we all have a destiny, we all have a life worth living, but we need to grab it by the scruff of the neck and say, today is my turn.
Yeah, absolutely. We're not done yet. I do have one final question, which I'll ask to finish on. So we'll see if we can finish up. But hey, we'll keep going. What's important for your future, Jan?
Oh wow. I mean, there's a lot of things important in my future, because I'm not done by a long shot yet.
Mm.
People said, oh, I'm feeling old, and they say at a certain age. I mean, I'm blessed because I'm now 60 years old, and I'm already a great grandfather. Believe it or not,
yeah.
my granddaughter, who just turned 21, she's had a 5-month-old grandson now, or she's nearly 5 months old, but a son. But I keep thinking bigger all the time, because I talk with my wife about it, and we said this a long time ago. There's people who say, oh, I want to leave a legacy. And I said, yes, of course, we all want. Well, not all of us want to do that. It would be nice for a lot of people, but they're not willing to put in the work. But I said, we talk about this. Why don't we live a legacy rather than just leave one? And there's so much in that, and working with people. And that's why I want to speak on the bigger stages of the world as well. Not because of, it's going to be nice to say I talk in front of 20, 30, 100,000 people. No, it's the fact that we're able to reach more people and touch more lives. Because the idea is that we are talking about, and I have a goal that I want to impact billions of people. And, I listened to Nick Vujicic, who's either in person or on the screen been in front of more than 1 billion people already. But with the technology we've got now, we can do this kind of things. And I have you might have heard it in my voice that I'm quite passionate about helping people, about passionate about making a difference. And it's not only about that. I want to, some of it will definitely be indirectly, but I want to inspire people to have that, to get that feeling of significance, to make sure that they will actually pay that forward and actually change the lives of others, that we start a ripple effect in this world where we need it more than ever before, that not people just to feel significance, but the fact that they're going to start helping other people and reach out and help other people, help them up, lift them up, put a hand on the shoulder. Just a simple thing, but there is so much more for me to do, and it excites me actually, and I know, you know, for that reason I need to keep developing every single day, because not only I need to stay relevant, I need to make sure that I keep that spark going that has been lit inside of me by other people, and you again, you lit a part of it as well just by being here today and inspire me with your stories, and all those kind of things make me think, yeah, you know, there is more for me. There is more people to meet. There's more people to collaborate with. There is so much more to do, and I think that is something that will keep me going, keep me young. One of my inspirations is my dad. He's 86 this year and he still works, not because he has to, but he loves what he does. And that's what I do. I love what I do, and I'm sure you say the same. I mean, I can hear it when you talk about the passions you've got and the things you talk about. You can hear it in people's voices. There is somebody who's living. You know, there's somebody who's still got a lot to give. And I said, you know, I want to live at least till I'm 120, and even then they've got to put a steel plate at the end of the coffin, because otherwise I'm going to slide right through it. Again, I'll leave you one quote from Les Brown: "Live full, die empty." And that's, I mean, most people die with everything still inside them, and it says it can't happen. When we've given everything we've got to give, and when there is no more to give, and then you know, maybe it's time to jump off. But until that time, we'll stay in the saddle.
Just fabulous. Jan, as I say, this has been an absolute pleasure for me and massively impactful, and I'm sure we will stay in touch. So yeah, thank you so much again for joining me. I'll make sure obviously your, you know, how people can connect and follow you will be in the show notes, and there'll be links. But if you want to say where people will be able to, you know, follow or connect with you online, please share them now.
Oh, well, I mean, my name, Jan Robberts, JANROBBERTS, to be or not to be. And I mean, I'm on most social media, LinkedIn, Facebook, and all those kind of things. But you know, you can reach me, and if there's anything you want me to support you with or to guide you on, get in touch. You know, don't say, you know, one day. No, if you have that thought, get in touch, because we always look at making a difference, and maybe we can make a little difference in your life too. Absolutely.
And as I say, any of those links for Jan will be in the show notes, so you can find them there. So once again, just Jan, thank you so much. Pleasure talking to you today.
James Dean, it's an absolute privilege for me to be with you today, and I thank you very much. And you know, I wish you all the best with your show, and I'm sure you're going to get many amazing people in your show, and people should listen to your show, because you know, they will grow when they listen to you.
I really appreciate that. Thanks, Jan.
Thanks.